What, from what you have heard, is the scope of the protests, and are they still growing despite this brutal government crackdown?
Indeed, this protest movement has swept the entire country, from the north to the south, from the east to the west. The coastal areas have, came out in strongs. The Daraa was the first city, in fact, that's now been so invaded by the Syrian army, have been the first to go the way by protest movement and to ask for the regime to be toppled. But soon after that, the spark has spread all through Syria, and the main demands now of the protesters is to, in fact, topple the regime. They have been peaceful, though. There were no, despite the government propaganda that there were violence on part of the protesters, the reality is the violence, all that we can confirm and we can see on all of these YouTube videos that we have managed to smuggle out of the country, and we continue to smuggle out of the country on a daily basis, show that the violence is restricted to the authorities and the army and the security forces, and that the protesters have been peaceful. But the protests are all over the country.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there any organization to the protests at this point? They're breaking out in cities across Syria, top to bottom, and the objective is clearly stated, but is there an organizing structure? You've been exiled from the country because of your participation in protests and your journalism, but is there an organizing group that can orchestrate this and that can stand up against the existing leadership?
This has become a self-organizing movement, really. Like in the beginning, it was a little bit haphazard, and there were different networks taking part and sort of advising on how the protest can be carried through. There were a lot of networks on the ground of young people in their late teens and their early 20s who decided to come, inspired by the examples in Tunisia and Egypt, to come, in fact, and do something along the same lines. And they've reached out to us through the social networks, through the Facebook and Twitter, and they've asked for our advice, and we have provided certain expertise and certain support. But the reality is this is a self-organizing movement on the ground, a grassroots movement, organic and indigenous to all these different communities. And this has made it a bit difficult to sometimes report on it or to predict how it's going to expand. But in the last 2 to 3 weeks, this has really become very much a very organized movement. The protesters have gotten in touch with each other across the country. They are on message. They have basically spoken about national unity, and the same chants that you hear reiterated in Daraa. On one hand, you can hear the same chants being reiterated also in the coastal city of Jable and Banyas, in the central city Homs, in Damascus suburbs itself, and so on.